Every single year my friends and I go on a camping trip. I just watched footage from a trip we never actually went on. It was getting to be a tradition. For the past 2 years we've gone on a camping trip together, me and my group of friends, Sean, Lynn and her sister Lily, Key, Sal, Monica, and Gabe. Monica's family is really wealthy and they own a lot of land out in bumfuck Michigan, so we've wrapped up our past 2 summer vacations out there in their woods. We pitch a few tents in what's basically the backyard of Monica's grandmother's huge Victorian-style house and pretend we're roughing it when in actuality, we just sleep out there for the 5 hours of the night that we don't spend drinking or playing video games inside. Cooking out over the bonfire and climbing trees is fun, but it's always only been a very small part of the trip. None of us talked about it or admitted it out loud, not even Monica, but we were all a little afraid to be out there for too long. We had no concrete reason to be, but we were. No matter how many times the Pines family assured us that the property was safe. I'd never seen or heard anything out of the ordinary out there. Maybe it was just because I'd seen enough horror movies to develop a fear of the woods in general, but I don't know. Something about the air and the intimidatingly vast property just made me feel really vulnerable. I got told just days before we were supposed to leave that I wouldn't be able to take the time off for the trip. One of my fellow supervisors at work had to go in for emergency surgery on his knee and my store just didn't have the coverage. I was really bummed, but my friends didn't hold it against me. We all know being an adult sucks sometimes. I told them they could still use my cooler and my tents and my camcorder and that they should video blog the trip for me. I hugged them all goodbye the morning they left and then I went off to my shift. I told Sal to call me once they got there because I knew he would be the only one who'd remember to check in. Sal never called, none of them did. I left work at 10 p.m. and tried to text and call all of them, but not one of them got back to me. I checked Twitter, Facebook, nothing from anybody. No updates since Gabe's hitting the road status from earlier that morning. I felt like throwing up. Something felt really wrong. Key's mother called me as soon as I started to panic and she sounded really rattled too. He hadn't talked to her all day, and he's really good about touching base with her when he takes trips. I'd later learned that whole night, my friends' parents were all trying to get in touch with each other. None of them heard from their kids since they first got on the road. Monica's mom called the landline to the house several times. Grandma Pines was out of town this year, but Monica should have answered if they were there. She didn't. Sean's father drove up to Pines' property the next morning with Monica's parents. He told me something felt off as soon as he stepped out of his car. When you pull up to the house, there's no fence or anything, so you can see if anything is set up in the area surrounding it. He would have been able to see if everyone had set up tents and gear as soon as he got up the path, but there was nothing. But he said all the house's windows were open and all the lights were on. Within a half hour, they called the police. I was asked to come in, watch the videos, and answer any questions I could. I transcribed what I watched as best I could. Clip 1, 10:45 September 16, 2016. Gabe has the camera pointed at the rearview mirror. Gabe, how the fuck do you know when it's recording? Monica, the green button is on, dipshit. Clip 2, 1:15 September 16, 2016. Gabe is filming the back of Lynn's car just ahead of them. He's talking to Sean and Monica, but I can't tell what they're saying, even with the audio adjusted. It's raining really hard and I see flashes of lightning. Clip 3, 8:16 September 16, 2016. A close-up of Monica. She's smoking and swinging in the rocking chair out on the back porch. She looks tipsy. She notices she's being filmed and winks at the camera. I think Sean laughs. Clip 4, 10:16 September 17, 2016. I swallow hard when I see the timestamp. It doesn't make any sense. Saturday morning. Sean's father was already calling the police by then. I want to ask the cop what's going on, but he tells me to please just keep watching quietly. Lily is flipping pancakes. She scrunches up her nose at the camera and Gabe chuckles. Gabe, you don't look so good, Lil. Didn't sleep? Lily, how could I? All those fucking screams last night? Gabe, the hell? Lily, you didn't hear that shit? Lynn and I were freaked the fuck out. Gabe, what the fuck? We didn't hear anything. Lily, yeah, it fucking sounded like cats in heat, but wrong. Like it wasn't natural. Gabe, we were out in the tents all night and we didn't hear shit. Lily, lucky you. We came in the house at like 4 and it was still going. I don't know when it stopped, but I guess I fell asleep at some point. Gabe, did the girls say anything? Lily, they're not up yet, I don't know. Here, can you pass me that? Clip 5, 11:14 September 17, 2016. A wide shot of the backyard. I can hear glasses clinking and a couple of my friends taking drags of cigarettes. I see a figure standing far off by the edge of the woods, but whoever's filming doesn't seem to notice it. Then I hear Gabe's voice, followed by Sean's, then Key's. They're talking about the hot tub needing repairs because the bubble jets don't work, and then the figure moves and Gabe sees it. Gabe, whoa, what the fuck? Key, what? Sean, dude. Gabe, holy fuck, what the fuck, who the fuck is? Key, Gabe. Sean, yo, what the fuck, man? Gabe, did you see? Did you fucking see? The figure is contorting in the distance and I cover my mouth with my hand. It's shaped like a person, but it starts doing this odd twitching movement with its arms. They look almost like they're stretching out really long and then shrinking again. The legs are bending like a flamingo's. The boys behind the camera are yelling and freaking out. The shot cuts to the figure launching itself upward into the trees. Clip 6. The timestamps are turned off. It's nighttime, a shaky shot of the deck out back. The porch light is on and Lily and Key have their backs to the camera. They're crouched down sitting on the steps and Lily is sobbing. Key looks behind his shoulder and mouths turn it off, but the camera is still recording. Key pecks the top of her head and rubs her back, but she barely moves. Key, are you sure you saw? His voice is too quiet for me to hear everything he says. I'm pretty sure Gabe is the one filming again. I don't see Monica in the shot, but I hear her voice, and then Sean's. Monica, what happened? Sean, you didn't hear that shit? Monica, what the fuck do you mean? Sean, there's some shit in this fucking house, man. Gabe, guys. Monica, I looked in every single room, there's nothing in here? Sean, freaking the fuck out, man, I'm tired of this shit. Monica, well what the fuck do you want me to do, Sean? Clip 7. A shot of somebody? Caught very high in a tree. Whoever's filming is panting and coughing like they started crying, and it sounds like it could either be Gabe or Sal. The shot is focused on whatever's stuck up there and something breaks off the tree and falls. It makes no noise when it lands and that's where the shot cuts. Clip 8. It's a shot of Monica's room, or what used to be her room when she was a little kid. I've only been in that room a couple of times. It's full of old childhood shit, so there's nothing really for us to see or do in there. The window is open and a little breeze ripples through the curtain. There's a crash like glass shattering from what sounds like downstairs and I nearly jump out of my seat, shielding my eyes, but the cop touches my arm, tells me there's nothing scary in the shot. It's still just the room, pink and purple with sunshine coming through. The clip ends with another loud crash and I swear I see flicker of someone's face, wide-eyed and gaunt, peeking into the corner of the window just for a second. I gasp out loud and whip around to look at the cop and he gives me this nod to keep watching. The last clip they show me is a still, blurred shot of the living room. The camera is facing the window overlooking the backyard and I can see the lit campfire. The TV isn't in the shot, but I can hear the music to the menu screen of one of the Mario Kart games. The shot is shifting in and out of focus and I can tell nobody is recording. The camera's just been left on. It's about a minute and a half of just this, then suddenly the power in the house goes out with a crack and I shake in my seat. There's a strange, howling noise from the outside, but it's not a coyote, not an animal. It sounds like 2 or 3 people mocking wolves, but warped. Something hits the window with a hard thud and I wince. There's blood spattered across it and through the smears. I can see somebody with oddly shaped limbs standing by the fire. They don't move. They just stand there with their head bent down, fixated completely on the flames while the howling keeps going, and I start to notice something. The howling sounds exactly the same every time, like it's a 6-second sound clip playing on a loop. As soon as this clicks in my mind, it stops completely and I'm so thrown off that I almost don't see the figure disappear. It doesn't leave the shot. I don't see it move. It just vanishes. The fire goes out and the lights turn on in the house again. The menu music for Mario Kart is playing again and I can hear my friends laughing, the clink of beer bottles. The shot goes blurred and then shuts off. That's all the footage they showed me. I was asked where I was during all this, why I didn't go on this trip, why my friends had some of my belongings, especially the camera. And I told them the truth. I told them about the previous 2 years, how nothing strange had ever happened on the Pines property before. In turn I asked them what happened to my friends. They told me 7 bodies were found on the property, none of them belonging to any one of my friends. Their parents were asked to identify the bodies and remains and none of them matched. My friends are just missing. I knew the cops weren't going to tell me, so I asked Sean's father about the 7 dead strangers. Were they people the Pines knew? He didn't know. He just told me how he found them, 6 of them, in a clearing in the woods, laying in a circle surrounding a tree with their guts strung together, holding hands like in a prayer. The 7th body was perched up at the top of the tree, impaled through the head on the highest branch. My grandma passed away a month ago. I just checked her journals and I think she actually made contact with the paranormal. My grandma passed away last month. I inherited her home. It's been in the family for years, but my parents have their own home a bit further away now, so after my Grammy passed it was all left to me. My sister and I were going through her belongings the other day and we discovered a small wooden chest hidden in the attic. It was old, covered in dust, and had a rusty lock that had long since ceased to function. Inside, we found stacks of leather-bound journals, each meticulously dated and filled with my grandmother's elegant handwriting. The journals spanned decades, from 1960 to the turn of the century. Grandma was always a storyteller, weaving tales of our family's deep roots in the remote corners of Appalachia, but she never mentioned these journals. As I started reading, the stories unfolded with an eerie familiarity, painting a chilling picture of our family's history. With each entry, the sense of foreboding grew stronger, and I realized these weren't just stories, they were warnings. And now, the past seems to be clawing its way into my present. Journal entry, August 15, 1960. We've settled in Abingdon, a remote, isolated part of Appalachia. The land here feels ancient, steeped in untold stories and whispers of the past. The locals are a superstitious lot, with warnings about the woods that surround our new home. They say never to whistle after dark, as it invites the attention of things best left undisturbed. Last night, as the sun set behind the mountains, I felt a strange heaviness in the air, almost as if the mountains themselves were watching us. The wind carried strange, faint whispers that seemed to beckon me into the forest. I wonder if moving here was a mistake. Journal entry, October 2, 1961. Something strange happened tonight. As dusk fell, I heard a distant, haunting whistle from the direction of the woods. It sent a shiver down my spine, and I hurried inside, bolting the door behind me. Curiosity got the better of me, and I peeked through the window. At the edge of the forest, I saw a figure. At first, it looked like a man, but its limbs were unnaturally long, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. It stood there, motionless, for what felt like hours before vanishing into the shadows. I didn't sleep at all that night, haunted by the image of those glowing eyes. Later, as the night grew deeper, the sounds of the forest became unnaturally silent, and I heard the creak of the floorboards outside my bedroom door. I held my breath, straining to hear any movement, but there was nothing. The air grew colder, and a sense of dread seeped into my bones. I knew something was out there, something that didn't belong. Journal entry, November 13, 1965. The air in Abingdon has grown thick with fear. People have been disappearing without a trace. Last night, I was jolted awake by the sound of someone whistling outside my window. My heart raced as I peeked through the curtains. There, under the pale moonlight, stood a tall figure. Its eyes were like twin flames, burning into my soul. It raised a hand and beckoned, its long fingers curling in a gesture that chilled me to the bone. I stayed awake until the first light of dawn, too terrified to move or make a sound. As the hours dragged on, I heard the sound of soft footsteps circling the house. The floorboards creaked, and the walls seemed to groan under the weight of an unseen presence. I could feel it watching me, a cold, malevolent gaze that pierced through the walls. When dawn finally broke, the oppressive feeling lifted, but the terror lingered. Journal entry, February 9, 1970. Uncle Bill is gone. He left the house in the dead of night, muttering that he heard Ma's voice calling to him from the woods. We tried to stop him, but he was convinced it was her, despite Ma being dead for 5 years. The search party found his hat the next day, torn and bloodied, but there was no sign of Uncle Bill. The locals whisper about the things that mimic human voices to lure their prey. I can't shake the feeling that something malevolent is watching us, waiting for the right moment to strike. The night he disappeared, the air was thick with fog, and the trees seemed to close in around the house. Shadows danced at the edge of the forest, and I heard faint whispers carried on the wind. They sounded like Ma, but distorted, wrong. As the fog crept closer, the whispers grew louder, and I could feel a presence pressing in on all sides. When Uncle Bill stepped into the mist, it swallowed him whole, and the whispers stopped. Journal entry, September 21, 1980. I found strange tracks behind the house today. They looked like hoof prints, but far larger and deeper than any animal native to these parts. The old-timers say it's the devil himself, roaming the hills and looking for souls to claim. They speak of an ancient curse, a pact made by our ancestors with dark forces to protect the land. I used to think these were just old wives' tales, but now I'm not so sure. The air is thick with a sense of foreboding, and I can't shake the feeling that something is watching us from the shadows. As I followed the tracks, I noticed the forest growing unnaturally silent. The usual sounds of wildlife were absent, replaced by a heavy, oppressive stillness. The tracks led to a clearing where the ground was scorched, as if burned by an intense heat. In the center of the clearing, I saw a figure, tall and gaunt, with eyes that glowed like embers. It turned its gaze towards me, and I felt a wave of dread wash over me. I fled back to the house, but I could feel its presence following me, a dark shadow that clung to my every step. Journal entry, May 12, 1995. I've seen it with my own eyes, the creature whatever it is. I was out checking the traps when I felt an overwhelming sense of dread, as if I was being watched. I turned and saw a creature emerging from the woods. It shifted forms, part human, part beast, its eyes burning with an unnatural light. It let out a low growl, a sound that seemed to vibrate through my very bones. I ran, stumbling and tripping in my haste, but I never looked back. Even now, I can feel its eyes on me, a malevolent presence that haunts my every step. The night after my encounter, I heard scratching at my window. I dared not look, but the sound was persistent, a slow, deliberate scraping that set my nerves on edge. I covered my ears, but the noise only grew louder, more insistent. Finally, I mustered the courage to peek through the curtains. There it was, the skinwalker, its face pressed against the glass, eyes glowing with an otherworldly hunger. I screamed, and it vanished, but I knew it would be back. Journal entry, December 31, 1999. Tonight, there's an electricity in the air, as if something monumental is about to happen. The wind carries strange whispers, and I hear the faintest, most unsettling sound of whistling. They say the new millennium will bring change, but I fear it's bringing something else. Something ancient, something hungry. As midnight approaches, the feeling of dread grows stronger. The shadows seem to move on their own, and I swear I saw a pair of glowing eyes staring at me from the edge of the forest. I can't shake the feeling that the past is catching up with us, and whatever it is, it's coming for me. As the clock struck midnight, the house was plunged into darkness. The wind howled, and the walls groaned as if under immense pressure. I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, moving through the house. The air grew colder, and I could see my breath in the dim light. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, and the shadows seemed to writhe and twist. I felt a cold hand on my shoulder, and I turned to see a face, pale and gaunt, with eyes that glowed like coals. It whispered my name, and I felt my blood run cold. Dash. And that was the end of the entries. As I close the last journal, a faint whistle drifts through the air, sending a chill down my spine. My hands tremble as I lock the doors and draw the curtains. The tales of Abingdon aren't just stories, they're a legacy of fear and darkness passed down through the generations. I realize now that by reading these journals, I've awakened something that should have remained buried. For the longest time I believed in this, but only since reading the journals have these instances started happening firsthand to me. The nights are long and sleepless. I hear that haunting whistle every night, growing closer with each passing hour. Shadows dance just beyond the tree line, and the air is thick with the weight of untold secrets. I know I have to leave this place, but deep down, I fear that some things you can't run from. The past has a way of catching up, especially in Abingdon. I love this family home, but I'm afraid I can't stay here much longer. My barber always gave me free haircuts for some odd reason. I just figured out the disgusting reason why it's free. Mr. Faskell has cut my hair since I moved to the city about 3 years ago. He's an older guy, maybe 50s or 60s, and he possesses that look and drawl that makes me think he's from up north somewhere. He could be from New York, Maine, or even the Great Lakes area, but I never asked him where. He's not a big guy, maybe $120 in the rain, and he cuts my hair just the way I like it. High and tight on the sides, leave some on top so whoever I'm sleeping with has something to play with, and neaten up my sideburns. I can't grow a real beard or he'd probably trim that for me too. The best part is that he does it all for free. Hard to believe, I know, but it seems there was a cost after all. Our relationship started easily enough. I had an interview with the city, maintenance and custodial, and I wanted to look sharp and make a good impression. Everything other than that paid nothing or barely nothing, and I really wanted to lock this job down. I had a nice set of interview clothes, some comfortable business shoes, and a winning smile, and I needed a sharp haircut to seal the deal. That is where the problem lies. My hair grows abnormally fast. It always has, and when I was a kid my dad used to bemoan the fact. He made jokes about going to barber school or buying stock in master cuts, but he always understood that when it was time for a cut, it was time for a cut. If you let it go longer than 2 weeks without a cut, it just turns into a shapeless mass. By the end of week 3, I looked like a sheepdog and Dad would look over his paper and sigh before saying he would take me to the barber. Faskell's Hair and Beards was about a block from my house, and when I stuck my head in to see their prices, Mr. Faskell looked up and smiled at me over the pile of hair he was sweeping up. Then, suddenly, he took a deep breath, and when he opened his eyes again I asked if everything was okay. "Just fine, young man. Say, you look like a man in need of a haircut, am I right?" I told him he sure was, and he invited me in and told me to have a seat. He had about 1,000,000 questions on that first visit. No, I didn't usually let it get this long. I liked it this way but a little long on top. No, I didn't use any special shampoo. Just dandruff shampoo from the Dollar General. No, I wasn't really prone to dry scalp, but I felt I can never be too careful. On and on and on and on until, finally, it was done. He had cut it just right, the perfect length, the perfect fade, everything. I asked him what I owed him, and he told me it was free. "Come on," I'd said, "you gotta charge me something." "I let my customers pay what they can afford," he said, "so whatever you can afford is fine with me. Think of it as a tip." I was okay with that and walked out with a free haircut while Mr. Faskell waved me out with a $10 tip. I left with a spring in my step. I felt like a new man, and I was ready for that job interview. I went home, got a shower, and when I looked in the mirror, I knew I had this. The next time I went to see Mr. Faskell, I left him a $20 tip and told him it was all thanks to him that I had gotten my awesome new job. For the next couple of years, I always went to Mr. Faskell when I needed a cut. If I had a date coming up, I went to Faskell's. Promotion interview at work? Faskell's. I told friends about his shop. I went there just to get a touch-up and talk with the old fella. In no time at all, Mr. Faskell and I were friends. He liked the same sports team I did, watched a lot of the same movies and TV shows I did, and even liked a lot of the same classic rock that I did. It was great, and I always looked forward to my bi-monthly haircut. Then, about 2 months ago, it all changed. I had come in to get my bi-monthly cut, telling Mr. Faskell about the previous week as he cut and styled my hair. He was always meticulous, getting everything just right as he cut and trimmed, and when he turned me around to look into the mirror, it was the same way I had gotten it for the last 3 years. I thanked him, handed him $10, and told him I'd see him soon. Of course, Mr. Faskell said, sweeping up the hair, "Come back anytime." I was leaving, almost a block up the street, when I realized I didn't have my sunglasses. They were my brand new Oakleys and they had cost quite a bit of cash. I remembered having them when I came up, taking them off my head, and setting them down at the station Mr. Faskell used. No problem, I thought, I'll just go back and get them. I stepped in, saying I had forgotten my sunglasses and was just gonna grab them, and that's when I saw him. Mr. Faskell was looking up guiltily, his eyes panicked. He was down on all fours, eating the hair he had swept up off the ground like he was a cow in the field. When he turned, I could see pieces of hair sticking to his lip like accusations. He stood up, whipping himself off, brushing at his mouth as he tried to explain. "I know how this looks, and I'll admit that yes, I was eating your hair. But, you have to understand, your hair is what I look forward to. I don't eat just anyone's hair, well, I used to. Now I can't wait to see you come in so I can eat something good. Why are you looking at me like that? I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy," he shouted, getting up as he stalked toward me. He seemed to realize that saying that made him sound crazy, so he switched gears. "Haven't I always done good work for you? There's nowhere in this town that you would get a haircut for less than $25. I cut your hair for tips. I've cut your hair for the dollars in your pocket. I've been good to you, and you've been a good customer. Let's just pretend this never happened, okay? Let's just go back too," but I didn't hear the rest. I snatched up my sunglasses and was out the door before he could say another word. I spent a while thinking about that, and the more I processed it, the worse it seemed to get. It began to haunt my dreams, seeing him bent over and eating the hair straight off the floor, looking back at me and grinning with my hair in his teeth, and I would wake up in a cold sweat. I know, it's not a particularly scary thing, but it freaked the hell out of me. I don't really like it when people put hair in their mouths. I had a girl in elementary school who used to chew her pigtails and it bred a lifetime phobia in me. Just the thought of wet hair in someone's mouth makes me want to puke, and I can't even touch someone's hair without cringing if they have a wig. A weird collection of phobias, but they're mine. It only took a couple of weeks before I started seeing new growth. My hair just grows too fast, and after 3 weeks my boss commented that I was looking shabby. He handed me a 20 out of his own wallet and told me to get a trim over lunch. I took it and started looking for somewhere to get a trim. The city had quite a few shops, but it seemed like whenever I was in one, I caught someone looking at me out of the corner of my eye. It was never anything I could prove, just a feeling, and when I looked up, I could almost catch a glimpse of Mr. Faskel. He was gone when I looked, but it made me extremely paranoid. I became aware of more than a glimpse as the weeks went on. When I rode the bus to work, I caught the familiar deep inhale of someone smelling my hair. When I was standing in a lunch line, I felt my hair move as someone inhaled. When I was at Walmart buying groceries, someone actually touched my hair, but they were gone when I turned around. It led me to become something of a recluse, and I only left the house to go to work. Over time, my hair grew out and I decided I would have to get another cut. I went to bed, setting my alarm so I could get up early enough to get to the master cuts down on Bonnie. It was Saturday, I had the day off, and I had chores to do before I got to the business of relaxing. As I slipped off to sleep, I fell into a familiar dream, a dream that had plagued me for weeks. I was sitting in the barber chair at Mr. Faskel's, the cape falling around me like a spider web, and the old man asking me if it was too tight. I didn't say anything, I was too scared to speak, and as the scissors began to clip, I trembled in fear. I didn't dare look back at the old man. I just knew his real face would be replaced by a monstrous visage and I would wake up panting and looking around for nothing at all. When the alarm went off, I went to the bathroom to splash some water on my face and start the shower. My bare shoulder itched, and when I went to wipe it off, I noticed there was hair clinging to my sweaty hand. Not a lot, just leavings. Like the leavings you find after a haircut. I ran to the bathroom and found that my hair was cut just the way I liked it. The sides were high and tight, the top was manageable but still thick, and my bangs were perfect. Everything was just as it usually was, and I felt a cold chill run through me that had nothing to do with air conditioning. I called the landlord, had the locks changed, and reported to the police that someone had broken into my house and cut my hair. The police didn't really take it seriously. They made jokes about a midnight barber and asked if I'd left a tip under my pillow. I told them about Mr. Faskel, but when I gave them the address, they just shook their heads and walked away. They thought I was joking with them, they didn't believe a word of what I'd told them, and as I ran the shower, I remember sitting under the water for a very long time and just letting it run over me. The bits of hair flowing down the drain felt like a betrayal. 2 weeks later, I woke up with another fresh haircut. I called the police but they rolled their eyes and told me to calm down. I told them it was hard for me to calm down when someone was breaking into my house and cutting my hair. I demanded they go check on Mr. Faskel, and told them right where his shop was, but they looked less amused this time at the suggestion. I asked if they had been to talk to him yet, and told them he had been there for 3 years, but they just told me it hadn't been funny the first time and it wasn't funny now. Why would it be funny? I asked, having to stop myself from grabbing one of them. Because Faskel's has never been open. It was a prop for the city's revitalization project, like coolie flowers across the street from it or green butcher beside it. It's set dressing, it's never open. Mr. Faskel was a guy who owned a barber shop in the 20s. He's dead, there is no Faskel who cuts hair. They left, and that left me very rattled. Mr. Faskel isn't a ghost, I know that. I have friends who go to him. I have felt him touch me. He's flesh and blood, just like I am, I'm sure of it. The fact that he eats hair is incidental. The man is real. But if he isn't Mr. Faskel, then who is he? How does he keep breaking into my house? I have a window in my room, but it's barred with a piece of broom handle and I live on the 3rd floor. I changed the locks again, I wedged a chair under my door, and when I finally made myself calm down enough to sleep, I hoped it would end. I woke up completely bald. Not buzzed, not at a 0 guard, but bald. Like, someone shaved my head in my sleep and took the hair. They got my eyebrows too, my 5 o'clock shadow, and my thick sideburns. I was as smooth and hairless as a newborn baby. I don't know what to do. I can't call the cops, they won't believe me. I can't call the landlord, he's replaced the locks twice now and is getting angry about it. I can't afford to move, I can't leave my job, I'm stuck. What I did find, however, was a message left on my nightstand. I'm sure the cops will say that I wrote it, but I know I didn't. There's hair on it and it's written in a heavy hand like a kid's scribblings. It's done on the back of an ad for Faskel's hair and beards, and the implication was pretty obvious. Come see me when it grows back. If you don't, it makes no difference. I know where to find you.